Hello and welcome to another episode. It's the monthly episode for November 2025 of my podcast 10,000 Hours and Counting, or Support for the Spiritual Path. And I'm here again joined today my beloved friend across the globe in the States, Rena. Rena, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Laura, for having me.
So you were my second episode at the beginning of this year, and we're sort of closing it out. I'm going to close it out with you. We're going to see how the energy, sort of like the top and the tail of the year, and bring through some beauty. And basically, Rena and I have been in percolation on this theme. It's kind of one of our, almost like our heart themes, a part of our relationship, what we always talk about. And so we want to really get into the frequency of what we would talk about, as Rena's saying, the paradox. I'll get you to explain the bit from your heart in a moment. And I'm sort of feeling into the energy of the polarity. We want to talk about divine feminine and divine masculine, and why there's seemingly a war between these two parts, and what we're seeing in the world at this current time. And we just want to shine a bit of a light on that and get you to open your heart to it and bring some, yeah, divine light, divine justice to these strange, human behaviors and belief systems, and find a better, higher truth. Rena,
Oh,
thank you.
so well said, Laura. And I feel like that just so naturally guides us into this topic. And as you were speaking that, I remember when I was at war with myself
Mhm.
with these seemingly unrelating things that these paradoxical truths that simultaneously lived within myself. And I remember being at war because I always felt I had to be consistent. I always had to be one thing. I always had to be something people understood. I always had to be this thing that, like, I was consistent. I could never I genuinely felt at war with myself with being like inconsistent or being, you know, um um, spiritual, but also wild. And, as spiritual practitioners, we know those are one and the same, but it felt paradoxical at first. Or what's another example? Um, um, Gosh, I can't think of it like right off the top of my head, but I think another one was, there's times when I'm, super, I don't know, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it'll come as we're talking about it. Um,
I get where you're at, though, what you're trying to say. And I love that you're saying this. Earlier, when we were setting up to record, we talked about the energy of permission. We were praying that we give permission for people to find their own unique energy and to trust their own inner core. And I agree with you, because the world is set up. Doesn't matter if you come into the world with remembrance as a soul, or what you come in as, what your baseline is. The world has still been set up to tell you, it's like the whack-a-mole. It's like, no, no, no. It's always telling you how to be. So even if you have the inner impulse, your natural impulse of who you want to be, even if that is clear to you, something in the world is going to show you, and it will make you take a breath and think, am I enough? Was that right? So questioning the self. And a part of us, something you were saying at the beginning, I feel like almost as humans, we are this experimental dish. We are the polarity, the paradox, to have those opposing forces within. We talk about sort of having like yin and yang energy, divine masculine, divine feminine. These are frequencies. It's like night and day. It's the pairs of opposites that come within us, and I feel like our journey is to unite those in a harmonious kind of a note, like weave them in as a song of life. So not a set of rules which society loves, but more of a fluidity and an accepting, and a just a sort of a unique dance of between the pairs of opposites, creating harmony. Not always, as you say, I should be consistent, and the world tells you one way, but what is consistency and what is authenticity?
I agree. And I think one of the ways that I've practically applied that in my life and through my own experience is reframing my mind to say, I'm not this or this. I'm not this or this. I'm not, um, spiritual and soft and feminine, but I'm also like I'm not or
Mm.
wild and outgoing and I want to go out and have a good time and go dance, on the town one night. Like it's like I'm this and I'm this.
Yeah.
And coming into this like this permission to give to myself really helped me heal that war within that like I give myself full permission to be, spiritual and soft and caring and loving, and then also wild and diverse and authentically true to wanting many different experiences. So, I just saw a video on Instagram like 2 weeks ago that I sent to Laura, maybe a week or two, and it was of a lioness, and she had her cubs, and the way, oh my gosh, I just got chills. And the way this cinematographer put together this video were clips of the lioness being a mom and a nurturing mother and like nurturing her cubs. And then the next clip was her hunting and killing a zebra. And then the next clip was her nurturing her cubs and playing with her cubs. And then the next clip was her attacking a bird of prey midair. And then the next clip was like the lion, like her little lion cub on her back. And then the next clip was her with a bloody face coming up from eating a zebra. I watched this video maybe like 25 times and sent it to everyone I knew because I was like, oh my gosh, this is the living paradox that I'm talking about in a 30-second video. Like, this is the war I was at with myself as a human, that I couldn't be these two things simultaneously. And here I was watching this video of this lioness perfectly depicting full expression of her being a nurturing mother and a fierce predator. And to see her wholeness in that, I was captivated. And so this
Often,
polite,
no, being able to look at nature and you getting that example, it's kind of like nature brings in the stamp of you thinking of the human concepts and the word, and in come the visuals. Do you know what I mean? Like in comes this visceral. And this is why we need to stay connected to nature. And I was, Rena and I always talk about, like, honestly, with healing in the world, we do need to heal. We need to allow women to be healed and helped because, in my view, it doesn't matter which race we heal or if we get better race relations, if within that race women are still being denied or whatever it is. So it's just sort of like the brass tacks of it is put our cards on the table is we want to work with this healing of both human women, biological women, and the feminine traits. Because when the world tries to cut out, diminish, and dismiss women themselves or feminine traits, it's an imbalanced, sick world. I once
I
had a spiritual
agree.
teacher talking about, I mean, it's sort of the idea of a bird that when you talk about the patriarchy, because we're not talking about men, we're talking about these behaviors in these systems that are toxic masculine traits. And there are so many men who don't have those traits. So we're talking about clearing this way of being and allowing people to be a proper masculine. I'm going to jump all over the place, but I wanted to also bring in the lioness. You were saying proper masculine energy is about being the protector of the feminine. So when you look in the world, where do you see that? You know what I mean? Like that's why are we not seeing those parts of the masculine? So to loop back to what I was trying to say there about the idea that the traits or women themselves could be held down. I had a teacher once, a spiritual teacher, and she said it's a bit like a bird trying to fly with one wing tapped down, taped down. Now, probably with the law of gravity, that won't even work at all. But if you want to have a concept, you'd be working very hard just to only use your yang, your masculine energy in your life. Why would you not want to have both to support you? So it's really about making things kinder to everyone. So even those people who are acting out with, hatred or vile energy, they're coming from fear, and we don't want to meet them with fear. But when someone's anger and fear comes at you, it's a little bit of a human thing, the pit of your stomach to sort of think, like feel your ancestral, terror if you're a woman or whatever it is about those kinds of things. But we need to try and meet it with more of a compassion in ourselves and a very strong ground of that's a boundary that I don't cross, but I don't come at you with hatred and fear. So I want to put that in the mix a bit.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that really does have to do with what we're saying. And to bring it back to the lioness video, there is an aspect of the feminine that we haven't evolved to really understand as a species yet, hence why we're struggling with it so bad. And that part of the feminine is that lioness video, that feminine energy can make life and feminine energy can take life. And when we as women don't understand that within ourselves, we're going to have that own fear.
Mm,
And what I've learned to come back to heal that war that I had within myself of that living paradox
mm,
is to fully accept myself as an and that's the wholeness. And until we can do that as women within ourselves and see ourselves as the bringer of life or the taker of life and understand the depth of that at a spiritual soul level, we're not going to be able to meet others with their polarity. And it's
yeah,
not until we come into full acceptance and full permission within ourselves through our own experience, through our own processes, will we be able to meet someone else's fear with that.
yeah,
And what we're being asked as a feminine, uh, what the feminine energy is asking of us as a species is to come into that wholeness.
mm,
And so for me, one of the ways spirit showed me how to heal this within myself was through a penny. And when
I've had a
when
penny
I
story here. Go ahead, go ahead. We had one before.
oh
I'm very, yes.
and it was I was meditating and I was asking, spirit, universe, God, goddess, source, whatever you call it. I was like, God, how do I accept my light and my dark? Like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so grossed out. I'm so about my darkness. And in that moment, it was in an intimate relationship with my partner at the time that I was coming face to face with my own issues that were creating darkness in our relationship, and really facing that with full permission through my meditation, through journaling. Source showed me it's all of who you are. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And it's like, imagine a penny. You have the face, you have the light, and then you have the tail, you have the dark.
Yeah,
But it's one penny. It's the whole penny that makes
yeah,
it. And like that moment I was like, "Oh my God, it's all of me. It's all of my expression of who I am."
yeah.
And what I came to this planet to do was not to hide my darkness, but to hug it, to hold it, to look
Mhm,
at it,
mhm,
to forgive it, to be with it. And that is how I believe we gain true power and mastery of ourselves, is not denying we're light or dark. You
mm,
know, we're light and we're dark, and we're all capable of any of those expressions coming out at any time.
yeah.
And so to bring this all together with what you're saying, what I'm saying is that it's an inside job. The light that we want to create on the planet with the light we want to create on the planet with the polarity that we're feeling that's so intense and so thick right now is by going within and
And that's a
asking
bit of a
ourselves.
that's sort of the paradox. I want to say what you said. It's a bit like we're saying to people, turn the lens within, but not with that scouring vision. But if you don't love yourself and give yourself compassion, and if you are at war within yourself, then that frequency is what you're going to keep attracting in the world. And it seems counterintuitive, maybe it seems stupid, but you don't have to fight that kind of aggression with aggression. It's if you can keep your own soil tilled within, with this divine support, as you say. I always think of the yin yang because within that, there's the white part, but it's got a tiny bit of black in it, and the black's got a tiny bit of white. And it's almost as simple, I want to say, even as like the in breath. You can't just not have an out breath. You've got to have in, out. You've got to have night, day. We don't have 24 hours of daylight. There are some countries who have that, and that's very challenging for them. It's difficult for the fauna, the flora, the humans. So we need to be able to have this understanding where we're looking for it's not even a formula, like it's balance, it's harmony, but it's when you see the yin yang symbol, and it will be it's in that sort of dance of movement, like it's always moving, because rigidity is the number one kind of one of the most difficult things of a toxic masculine behavior, and being ungrounded, kind of scattered, would be more of a feminine toxic behavior. So coming together, it's about finding the way where one part comes in. There's more strength needed for this. The lioness uses more strength to kill the zebra than she does to, tame tend to her cubs. So it's always finding out. But as humans, we basically want to be given the formula. We want to know this is the way. I'll follow these rules. I'll tick these boxes. Even spiritually, people sort of think if I just do it this way, if I learn the way for me. But the truth is, we're always evolving and changing and growing. And so we need to be able to be free to sort of have that time for what needs to come in. And this is again a societal issue of how do we allow that within the current society we have almost. How do you allow people this more freedom? Well, it just does start within with the one person and the one person and the next person. And this is the point. This is why I'm doing this podcast to encourage you to say your spiritual path that you're doing now, you cannot know how powerful you uncovering your truths are for this ripple effect because we don't have the power as such on the face of it to fight these ridiculous things and scream about them and wave placards. We've tried that a long time in Earth. It's more about this inner shift. It's the inner shift. That's what Rena's saying. She had to go within because the incoming will be there and you need to go within and find the harmony in you, and then you start to find it in others.
Absolutely. The like attracts like. And what you were saying is when you're fighting that within yourselves, you're going to fight it with others. And it's not until you find that peace within yourselves that you'll within yourself that you're able to create that standard and that vibration to
Thank
attract
you.
more. Yeah. and
This,
and then and then when you do attract someone who triggers you and you want to fight back, I think the whole point of this is giving yourself compassion,
mm,
that you're human, you're
mm,
spiritual, and you're human. And the human aspect of this planet, the whole journey of coming to earth, being human, is not having it perfect yet. And
mm,
going through that journey and that experience of compassion to yourself when you did it terribly, when you fucked up, when you
mm,
did a bad job. It's
mm,
not about denying that aspect of you. It's about, I believe, true power, and I've felt this from my own experience, is going, wow, I see you. You're really struggling with that. You really want to fight back on that. And then asking, getting inquisitive, getting curious, and going, why? What's being triggered? What do you have to prove? What's happening here on a deeper level? Is it entrenched childhood trigger and trauma that needs to just be tended to?
mm.
Is it, something that's, you know, there's so many different reasons that that can come up, but it's just spending time, shutting a door, getting in a room by yourself, spending time with yourself and inquiring
Yeah,
within,
yeah.
and then just
Because
asking questions.
no, what you're going to say when you are doing that looking within, because what tends to happen, I feel, and I've had it for myself in the past, is overwhelm can come in when you're seeing the stuff that's out there. Part of you, and certainly I've noticed this for me, if I want to look at the traits of my inner masculine, which need healing, it's where the masculine feels impotent and it just goes, well, I don't know. I just
Ah,
cave in. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I don't know what to do. Like hopelessness would come through. And I guess that would be part of when a masculine role isn't able to be that strength and the protector, the container for like the life force of the divine feminine. You know what I mean? So overwhelm is the other
absolutely.
enemy. And that's what we're at the moment in terms of just incoming information. So that's why you can do yourself a kindness to, we're not talking about not standing up for things you believe in, but at certain points, stopping looking out at it, especially when it gets frightening or it seems insurmountably just no answer at all, is what insurmountable means. It seems like that to you. Then you know you've got your fill, you're overloaded, and you're just going to be part of, if not the problem, you're just going to be part of the stew. And that's where you do that like unplugging part and you take yourself out of it and you work at it like spiritually, like from the corners and the sides of the room. And that's what we do. That's what we do the inner work. We
Oh,
do our prayer or our altar work, our invocation of divine energies.
agreed. Overwhelm is the number one key factor that rings the alarm bells for me, that I'm like, oh, I need to rest.
Hmm.
Like I need to stop thinking. I need to, get off social media. I need to stop scrolling. I need to stop taking in so much information and I need to get quiet and like relax and rest because that overwhelm is when I know I it I've I've become overstimulated.
Hmm.
I
And
don't know what to do and I
that
just need to
creates
do nothing.
do nothing, and that creates confusion, and that's a little bit like what this kind of toxic energy wants to do. It creates confusion in all of us, in the masses. It wants us to be confused and angry and kind of fighting each other and fighting different groups and all of that. So there are, historically saints and sages, there are current monks today, there are spiritual beings, there is Rena in California and Laura in Australia, there's all of us. You can do modern mysticism in your own home. Okay, so there are beings that part of their life is to pray and spend time praying and praying and praying and generating goodwill. And there are also those of us who are doing slightly more human parts, like I said, Rena and Laura, and yet we're also doing that as well. So I think if we can understand that one person connecting it, it's a bit like drawing in more of that frequency. So as we call it in our own individual way, it gets closer, it gets more accessible for other people too. So you can devote part of your life, you do the human parts, but there's no reason why you can't pull in your monk on the monastery moment. You don't need to go on a retreat, but you bring these moments through. And that's the dance for me between human and divine. Then I was doing the grocery shopping. Then I came home and I lit a candle and I did my prayers or my mantra or whatever it was. I did a dance, and called in this energy. And that is what I feel we kind of need to understand, that the practice that we have genuinely from our hearts on spiritual practice is part of the solution, is always part of the solution. And number one, it starts with calming us down so we're not taking on that stuff that's out there and being in a helpless storm of it like everybody else who maybe doesn't have that inner light to rely on or doesn't understand they have that.
Yes, absolutely. I
I just quickly
agree.
want to drop in too, because Rena, you often are sending light as part of your job, your normal job. Part of what Rena will be doing is the job. And then you can speak to that if you want, but then she's also like showering light, like it's the intention. And you can do that on the flip side. One human action in the job, and you're also intending or you've done your work before. We can always bring through light without being dogmatic about it or telling someone we've, invoked a divine being. But how do you feel about that when you are able to spread light through your job and you see stuff and you think, you know what, I'm going to bring this part of me to bear. I'm just going to do it silently, like invisibly in the background. And yet you've told me stories where you think you're invisibly emanating and someone is really positively affected and wants to tell you about it, and you're not sort of lecturing them on how to be. You just are being that essence and bringing light to difficult human situations.
Yes, I think it's always gratifying. And I think there's so much to say here. And I think you bring up such a great point because when you and I used to work together and we were hosting spiritual communities and everything we did was remotely and it was triggering and it was frustrating and there were definitely hard parts of the job, but working remotely and being able to have that buffer with humans was it really does, even though it was difficult and it had its challenges, it was, there was that buffer there. Going back into corporate aviation after working for Alana Fairchild together has been a huge challenge. And I think this really speaks to the living paradox that I feel is life, because there are times where I am emanating light and joy and it's coming so naturally. And I've meditated before I'm flying and I've had, premonitions and I've been able to like see how the day is going to go and be prepared for it. And then there's days where I am struggling and I am so challenged and I am like just trying to get through the day and I'm jet lagged and I'm, dehydrated and just exhausted. And I haven't been the greatest influence in the
Mm.
world. And one of the ways that I've continued to keep my light shining bright is by honoring both sides of that,
Yes.
giving myself full permission to be both. And by giving myself full permission and accepting, and asking for forgiveness from myself
Mm.
for being both, and then, from others that I might have hurt in the process, I think is that compassionate piece. And what we're talking about is that light worker piece,
Mm.
is through full acceptance of ourselves. And when we're expanding our light, we're also expanding our darkness, and
Yeah.
we're expanding ourselves on a whole. And so you're never done with your triggers. You're never done with your challenges. You're never done with your evolution until you're like taking your last breath. If
Yeah.
you're still on the planet and you're still breathing, you're still expanding in both of these things. And it's so addicting to just be love and light all the time. And it's so addicting to be like, oh, this beautiful human that just spreads light and love. And I think the way that we create light, more light on this planet, is by going, but I'm both.
Authenticity, authenticity. And I also feel what you're
Yes.
saying there. It's a bit like the perfectionism, that path of saying, oh, I have to be perfect. That's also that toxic masculinity, which forces you into just being one way and only showing one way to others. And then you start to even lose who is behind the facade, and we've seen that before. And really that's right. It's not about the spiritual journey of showing all the beauty of it. And it's not about showing, I just want to, you don't show all the undigested stuff of your path too. There's something about that modern thing. I'll just share everything. But it's about
Right.
being willing to say, but you showing up on what you're saying is your worst day because you do all the behind the scenes on yourself all the time and you've got curiosity to look, even you on your worst day, it's still bringing something, it's still bringing authenticity because someone else's worst day is about attacking someone else because they come out of unawareness, which is what we're sort of saying. This energy that wants to attack, label, minimize has total unawareness. And that's the darkness that you can't encourage. But when we talk about our own darkness, as you say, it's our triggers, it's our fears, it's the karmic line, it's all of that stuff. And if you deny that part and try to sit on it, is when you get the disruptions or the illness or the blockage in the body or just feeling overwhelmed. It's about we don't deny. And so that's what we were saying, male and female, divine feminine, divine masculine. One can't be better than the other. One can't be less than the other. And this is the world we were all born into, and it's starting to crumble at the edges a bit now, but we still have to hold the way and say a lot of us came in not thinking this way or feeling this way, and we've been put into a system where we had to handle it or cope, if you want to say. It wasn't always appropriate, or you could try to bring change, but change comes, when change comes, and you can't necessarily hurry it. So it's really sort of this feeling of we have to, even in ourselves, like gently search for where am I bringing in these harsh, what am I trying to say, like structures, no, strictures. Where am I saying, I don't like that in the world, I don't like that political voice, but how am I actually doing it to myself? Where am I telling myself I'm not enough? It's about that as well. And you've said it, doing the inner work. So even on your worst day.
Yes. Well, and you make a good point, is like this isn't about taking all your darkness and like using it on life as a therapy session. Like I truly believe that, and Dr. Brene Brown calls it floodlighting. When
Hmm.
you go up to someone or you're starting to open up and it's like way too much and you're just starting to like word vomit all your darkness onto someone, that's usually a sign that you haven't given yourself enough space um, to digest it yourself. And and I think in a very practical way, the way that we do that, the way we show up in a light, like in the highest vibrational form that we want to in our daily life, is by practically taking care of ourselves and having those self-care practices in place, having your daily practices, having your weekly practices, having your monthly practices, having your yearly practices, having your spiritual friends, having a team or a therapist or spiritual practitioner that you've hired, being in some type of community. I think it's really important to begin to um, have the safe space to express these dark feelings, the triggers, where you need help in those areas. It's very important to do that within the correct context. And
Mm.
I think that that takes radical responsibility
Yeah.
for someone to show up for themselves and go, what do I need? And then to provide that for themselves. I feel that's the most important key foundation to showing up as a light in the world.
Mm.
And it's so much that happens behind the scenes. I mean,
Most of it happens behind the scenes.
most of it, holding on for dear life to like get like behind a closed door to like process, to integrate, to
Mm.
transmute, to transform, to release, whatever I need to do in my practice.
Mm.
Um, that is usually happening away from public eyes.
Yes, yes. And I think that many people understand that. We understand that it's about, whether spirituality is out there on the internet or the modern spirituality or the way you've been practicing it, forever, that it really is a personal thing. It's a personal journey. You can take a bit from here, you can take a bit from there. But ultimately, you talked about digestion. I'm just going to bring it back again to we need to integrate and digest what we bring in. So not just bringing in more learning and more practice, but that's ungrounded spirituality as well. And so when we ground our spirituality, it's that nurtured feminine energy. And it's that, I think it's the harmonized balance. I want to say before it is, it's like the masculine is the container, holds the space, and the feminine is that energy of inspiration and life. I mean, we said it before, you said it a few times. Women bring life. So that's powerful. It's not minimizing the masculine. Masculine supports life, but we just wanted to speak about that frequency of the hatred, the minimization, as I said, also the feminine qualities, because we know there's so many people of different sexual orientations, and the world tells them your qualities are more feminine, and so therefore they're not acceptable. It's this kind of thing again we're back at. So what does that really
Yes,
mean to be
no.
a human? Why do we have to be, if you are a woman and people can see that you are a woman, why do they then have to decide they know things about you or they understand how you'll think or you must be like this or, it's a challenge, but we're strong enough, all of us who are, just unique beings to overcome it. And I feel that part of our journey as souls on earth is to pave the way, we said before about acceptance of allowing people's differences to be something that unites us and doesn't tear us apart into fighting and territories and all of that. Like it's about what is the unique being? And historically, we were talking about different cultures, or even way, way back, if you want to go into Lemuria, where the energy of what a sexual being, what a male or a female is more fluid, and why you can't just be a person. So you have a name and you have your body and you are you and you're allowed to be in the world. And I think that the more we try and label ourselves, in actual fact, we get further away from our truth and we make it harder for people sometimes to connect to us. So sometimes a label is not empowering you. I don't want to be told just because I'm a woman, XYZ follows. And I also don't want to have to explain all the other parts of me. Do you know what I mean? I just want to show up and just have people be open. So I don't know if that's too futuristic, um, focused.
Well, no, I don't think, I think that's where we're headed. And like, I think biologically, what we do as humans is we try to categorize things. We
Mhm.
try to understand them. We try to call it, this is black, this is white, this is feminine, this is masculine, and you can't step outside of those boxes and those lines, or else you're gonna hurt my brain, basically, is what we're
Mm,
saying. Because biologically, to stay safe, we tried to categorize things to understand them. And I don't know the exact science, but I know what's helped me to understand it is that if it's something that's no longer needed to keep me safe because we live very different lifestyles now,
mm,
and um we're not, in hunter gatherer, tribes anymore. We're not, fighting saber-toothed tigers, but our biology is. Our
yeah,
biology hasn't changed. Our human chemistry, we still, when we're going into fight or flight, it's because our body thinks we're running from, a saber-toothed tiger, or we're trying to categorize things because these things are such a threat. And I
yeah.
think one of the biggest examples actually, I don't think I want to go there. But we have to basically retrain ourselves to say, is this actually a threat or am I perceiving this as a threat?
Yeah.
And how do I need to change and evolve? And it's more of, we have to talk ourselves through that to get to that point. And
Mm,
that's such that's a self-care aspect. That's coming
yeah.
back to inquiry within. And if we're not willing to do that, um, we're not going to be able to learn from these things that are no longer valid within our own biology, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, because we don't want to be reacting in the same way other forces are reacting to that biology. We know better. So we need to lean into that. And it's about listening to people's stories and letting people tell you their truth. This is the other thing. Quietly in community, people that you know, understanding, that somebody's truth, the more that we let people, share their unique frequency and how they want to be in the world, the more we will start to, I think, start to be more inclusive. Because my experience of just regular people around basically is people do just want to get along. There's a lot of that harmony as well. Of course, we hear about the negativity because it's so violent and so out there, and we want to stop that on the earth. Okay, that is not okay. But we get so caught up in it that then I think we forget just the sort of the small kindnesses. And so it's about creating community where you can. You said it before, whatever that is for you, and just trusting and believing that if you can stay true to you and stop the inner war within you where you deplete yourself, then we do create that critical mass, the prayers and all of that stuff. And I always come back to that and I say, well, this divine energy, it really is supporting us and helping us. And in a way, it's shining a light we've never seen in the world before on this scale. This many things. It's almost like watching an insane Hollywood movie where they couldn't decide what kind of story they were telling and they just added in every atrocity and every disaster. But at the same time, when it is seen, there's an ability for the light to come to it. So what was hidden before, once before, is now being seen repeatedly, 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 but it's bringing the light to it. So if you can bring the light to yourself and your own fears and witness what you're seeing with an energy of, there is a reason for this to come to truth because until it is seen, it cannot be healed. If it can be denied, then we're back where we started on the back foot. So I would just encourage people to feel into their own being and do their best to hold fast to what I say, the heart's intent. You know what I mean? Like for yourself and stay kind. You said it before, stay compassionate in the face of someone's hatred because it's almost like the antidote to that. And I'm talking spiritually too.
Yes, and may the force be with you.
Yeah, that you need it. But it's really, it's just important. I think if we get that idea that, all the inner work that we do, the reason that we're doing this work is to make life better for everyone. We don't just want to get enlightened ourselves and sit there meditating on this, slag heap of rubbish and we're like this pure being. We want to emanate that out for others. So the suffering of others, of course, that hurts my heart. But I need to do what I can do in my corner of the world. And sometimes that's praying, and it's really about allowing yourself the space. Rena, you talked about us working online before, and a lot of what we were doing was space holding. And what that's done for us now as we go into other parts of what we do in the world is creating an energetic sort of template, a field, so that what we have done really can be felt, by people in ways that maybe it wasn't when we were doing things differently, prior to our massive space holding experience, even for me with my spiritual work prior to that. So spaciousness, I think, is another topic. Oh my gosh, there's always so many that come through, but
Oh my gosh, I know.
it's
I
like
there's been
taking a
like
breath.
17.
It's like when you are confused or overwhelmed, I guess come back to the body and take a breath, like take a breath.
And don't underestimate the power of prioritizing joy. I because the one of the universal laws that either you know very well or you're starting to come into understand is energy goes where attention goes where energy flows. Excuse
Hmm.
me. Energy goes where attention flows. Energy goes where attention flows.
Yeah.
And yesterday I was at Disneyland and I was like, I need to do this more often because it was massive, massive crowds of people that want to have fun. Like, that want to be in their joy and that are in their joy and safely doing it and having fun and enjoying and playing and being creative. And I was just like, it, like the magic is real. And so, yes, it is important to shed light on the dark, but then
Mhm.
also to make sure you're not getting stuck in it and
Mhm.
dredging in it for too long. Like, you don't need to punish yourself and stay there. You know, you don't need to add salt to a wound. Like, it's like, do what you need to do and then give yourself permission to get out of it as soon as possible and continue to follow your joy, follow what lights your soul on fire, follow what makes you light up with love and joy and excitement and what really gets your soul feeling just so aligned. And when you feel in that flow, continuing to hold it for as long as you possibly can. And then when you feel yourself going back into the dark, giving yourself permission to be there for as long as you need, but not staying there longer than you need to, and then getting back into that flow of joy and love. And so you were asking earlier, like what I do, that's what I do and give myself permission to do. And like you
Like,
said at the top,
no, sorry, I was going to say, you're bringing me the idea of being a warrior of light. Do you know what I mean? Like being a strong, person who believes in justice. And so I feel like we all need to understand we don't have to do it all of the time. What you say, you don't have to be on with your justice vision all of the time. There's someone in the world right now talking about something important or writing an article about it. So it's like we step in, we step out. You don't need to be on every cause, as you say, all of the time. Just be grateful and just know the pot is being stirred. Voices of justice are rising. People are talking about these things. So you follow your passion for it, but then you'd just be an overwhelm. So how does the warrior recharge? Exactly right. It's either through joy or through stillness. But otherwise, you're just telling yourself you're going to use that paradoxical, sort of vibe of saying, well, sorry, not paradoxical. You're going to tell yourself, I must be on all of the time and be fighting all of the time. And then you just haven't listened to anything we've said in this session so far.
yeah. Yeah, you're working and you're doing the work, and then you're also needing to balance out with rest.
Mm,
That polarity is so real. It's
mm.
this and this,
It's the
and
two sides
how
of the coin.
it really is. It really is. And I think it's continually evolving on this upward spiral of learning
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
continuing to learn new ways of doing that, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's really, thank you so much for coming here into this space again with me, Rena. And we
Mm.
bring in so many threads, but just to feel that, what you're saying, the fierce feminine energy within you when it's there, the soft energy. And I encourage everyone to feel into their own parts of the self and get more clear on what is authentically me and what is something I feel I have to do for that other person or for society. Just have clarity on that and understand that life is not this boring, static, rigid thing. And that it's the dance, it's between accepting, seemingly opposing opposites. How do we make space and room for them? So there's some beauty and there's also, challenge in that, but that's what we're here to do. So gratitude for your heart. Oh my gosh, it's such a joy.
Oh, same with you, Laura. It's so beautiful connecting and having these conversations and hopefully touching exactly who's supposed to hear this.
Yeah, just may anybody listening be inspired just to keep going on their path of, love, light, shadow, darkness of everything and integrating the all, bringing it all together. And may we continue to make these healing shifts on the planet for the spiritual benefit of all beings. So thank you everyone
And
for
so it
listening.
is.
And so it is. And
And
this is
so
our
it is.
November episode. And just sending Rena back off into her day. And all of you, may you be inspired to keep helping yourself and the world. It's always that dance. What we help with ourselves, the ripple effects flow outwards. So from 10,000 hours and counting, it's goodbye for now. Bye, everyone. Bye, Rena.
Bye.